We're off. My name is Paul Julian, and I'm with the Veterans Memorial Center Veterans History Project, and I'll be interviewing
Gary McCauley.
McCauley.
I go by Mac.
By Mac. And the date is March 3rd,
Yep.
2020, and we're at the Veterans Memorial Center. And I'm just very honored that Mac would take the time out to tell us his story.
Well, I appreciate you guys, the effort you're doing in this project.
Appreciate that. Mac, just some basic things which you've probably already documented in that little background information, but and I'll try not to spend too much time on that, but where were you born?
Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder, Colorado. And who were your parents and what were their occupations?
Dad was E.T. McCauley, and he was an engineer, civil engineer. My mom was Margaret Ann McCauley, and she was an accountant. And they both worked, so I was a latchkey child growing up. No brothers or sisters.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. But what were your parents' feelings, Mac, about you joining? Because you mentioned, I overheard you mentioned during the Vietnam era.
Well, yes, they supported me. My dad didn't serve during World War II, but I had uncles and other relatives that had served, and I had always had a feeling myself that I wanted to serve in some capacity, and so come to pass that getting in the Air Force was an option that became available when I went to college, and my parents supported it 100%. They were behind me all the way, and I think they were glad that I went ahead and had a commitment.
So that one element, Mac, was service. You wanted to do service. You wanted to.
Yes, I did.
You had that at that young age. You had that. Hey, you know.
I had
even given the environment.
I had yes, you know, it's kind of interesting because it transitioned. Because growing up in the early '50s, I lived in. We moved from Colorado to Yuma, Arizona, and outside of the Yuma there was an Air Force station, and a lot early jet age, and so I was see every day these jet fighters flying over our schools, and I excited me. My dad would take me out the yearly air show there.
Wow.
And I became, excited about being in the service, and so that kind of kicked it off.
And you mentioned college. So you were in college when you decided to?
Yes, actually, we moved to a small farming community in Southern California, right next to the Mexican border, and I ended up going to college at San Diego State University.
San Diego State?
Yep. They offered the only ROTC program they offered was Air Force, and I thought that was great because that's kind of where I was headed, and I wanted to fly jets. So I was accepted and graduated in '66. The only sad part was that over the time my eyesight deteriorated to the point that I did qualify to be a pilot. So ended up getting commissioned as a second lieutenant, and served in the ground capacity.
Ground capacity. So that San Diego State was actually in San Diego, huh?
Yes, San Diego.
And you mentioned that community over the border. Was it San Ysidro?
No, actually, it's McCauley is the name of the town that's right across the border. There's a town, one McCauley on the Baja California side, and Calexico right on the United States, and a combination of California, Mexico, California. It's kind of an interesting, those two towns right next to each other, but it's in the desert farming community.
Did you hold any jobs before entering the service, or you just went right to college?
No, I went straight from high school to college.
And Mac, what did you major in?
My major was business administration. and the minor was.
Your mom was the accountant, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I had started out in engineering, but after a year I found that wasn't,
Not
my
exactly.
math skills weren't strong enough to carry me through that.
Yeah.
So business became my option. And then then ROTC Air Science was my minor. It's part of the program that they offered,
Okay.
a minor in air science.
When you, so did you go in the military upon graduation?
Yes, I did. Commissioned, and 2 months later, hadn't got my orders, and they were to report to Grand Forks Air Force Base in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and become a part of the Minuteman II ICBM Strategic Air Command package at the base there. So that was right out of 2 months out of graduation. I was on my way.
Okay. And what did you, besides your parents, did you leave behind anything else, like a girlfriend or a...
Yeah, there was a significant other, and we had talked about we weren't engaged or anything, but I felt that going into the Air Force, not knowing exactly what and where we would be involved, we just decided to step back and end the relationship. Still kept in touch, but no, this was kind of on my own when I headed out.
Okay.
Suitcase and
is there, and you basically alluded to, you chose the Air Force because you loved to see, that was really impressive and really awesome seeing those the
planes,
jets.
jets. I was fascinated by jets, and of course, the military. We had some indoctrinations during our ROTC, in which we got to fly in various Air Force planes, and just developed my enthusiasm. I had one other just quick story. A side trip while in ROTC was a submarine. A day on a submarine. This was not a nuclear submarine. It was a diesel-powered submarine here in San Diego. Big San Diego bases of Navy. So one of our field trips was to go out, spend the whole day, go out of San Diego out into the Pacific, actually dive under and spend a whole day on a submarine. And it was not a real luxurious trip. I tell you, it solidified my my idea that the Air Force was where I needed to be, not under the ocean.
Where was so you was with enlisted? They have a points of entry. Did you like you said, you went directly from getting your commission, and 2 weeks later you're in Grand Forks?
About 2 months later,
2
I
months
went
later.
home for 2 months, and then actually my first duty station was in Chanute Air Force Base in Rantoul, Illinois. It was the basic 5-week basic course for officers going into the missile business. So I left my home in El Centro, California, flew commercial, and just walked in the gate, and there I was. It was my first assignment for 5 weeks.
And you said El Centro, that's a suburb of San Diego, right?
It's about 120 miles due east of San Diego.
Oh, due east.
Yeah. It's towards the Arizona.
Oh, okay. Again, that's where you're
That's my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you did about 5 weeks of training for officer missile business and just getting into handling the missiles. Did you have any other training?
Yes. Well, the system took you there for your first year indoctrination, basics, learning about missiles and about the capsule and the command units that would be
the
science of it. And from there, I went back, left to go up to Grand Forks to a home base, and that was an interesting little trip because it was it was the first part of May, and I recently purchased a car, so I drove up, and as I got closer and closer to the North Dakota border, I started noticing more and more snow on the ground. And when I pulled into the base, there was actually places there was 3 feet of snow in the shaded areas, and this is the 9th of May, and I wasn't prepared for that. But I got used to it afterwards, and so that was my introduction to my base, Grand Forks, with 3 foot of snow in May. So we go there in Grand Forks was our second step. You did administrative duties and got indoctrinated to your squadron, which was the 448 Strategic Missile Squadron, and some of the administrative part of it, and then from there, after about a month, I went to Vandenberg Air Force Base on the coast of California for another 5-week training period, more intense, operational, had to do with the what's called Emergency War Order, EWO, and the actual simulators of the launch control facilities. It was pretty intense period of 5 weeks. So that topped off, and then you came back to Grand Forks to complete your polishing of your skills and in depth more.
Like OJT and
yes,
yeah.
And then from that period, you got back. You were assigned a crew, and that crew you worked together to become a crew, and then we're certified through a process of a written, oral, and
so it sounds like you're getting like it has to be practicals. You have to like on a submarine or on a surface ship, you have to get qualified, and then you get a pin. And surface warfare qualified, so it's a similar thing. You have to get qualified. You have to really know what everybody else is doing, the whole team.
You do, and
okay.
and after you have completed that and became certified as a certified combat crew, you then awarded your pocket rocket, your missile, your badge at that time.
Okay.
You worked a lot of no-loan zones?
Say again?
You worked a lot of no-loan zones?
Oh yes, pretty much exclusively in the job I had was.
No-loan zone is you can't be by yourself anymore.
You had to have somebody else, two of you together to carry that out. Yeah. It was, the training, like I said, intense. And so different than anything you'd been involved in college or exposed to.
Pretty much really real life type things.
Yeah, and at that time, the Cold War was still pretty hot at that point in time. So our job and our mission with these missiles was an important one, and it's one to take seriously.
Yeah.
When the young officers that were there, when we were on duty, it was
vigilant.
No messing around.
Vigilant. And
aware. We had our off time that we enjoyed playing, but
when you're on, you're on.
Pretty serious. Yeah, it was a pretty serious deal.
Mac, was there any particular instructor that stood out in your mind during your training?
Not any. Not really. No, not really.
What was as far as the training? Let's digress a little bit. You have any? What was the most vivid memory of your training in school?
In college?
No, in your Air Force training. And what was, like in particular, what was the most vivid memory, and then what was the best part and what was the worst part?
Well, my recollection best was that how you became indoctrinated in using a checklist. You had a book, a manual that you went to and you followed step by step. There was no deviation. There was no freelancing. And this manual, my Lord, it's that thick, would cover all situations that you may encounter while in the capsule, while in the launch facility. And that was something that I, in most of my life,
that
you
age.
don't go through having to do. But if you stayed with that checklist, you could pretty much cover everything that would happen potentially. And so by training in that and coordinating, because there's two people on duty at the same time, you had your part, the other person had their part, and so that part of the training was probably the most. I don't have any real negative thoughts of the training process.
No, nothing really that stuck out that was bad.
It was it was snowing and cold in Illinois, but it was beautiful in California.
Illinois.
So
had both sides.
it
Balanced it out.
balanced it out. Yeah.
Okay. Did you end up? Could you say, Mac, that you ended up qualifying with any kind of equipment, or?
Well,
I know you had to qualify in the process, but nothing
we had
that
to
process
shooting a 38 pistol every year to qualify in that. But no, the qualification for us was to be able to launch a ICBM missile, and
which involved a bunch of equipment.
it did. It was there was
Communications,
extensive
and then there's actual involvement.
Computers were involved.
Back in
radio.
that day, you had computers.
It was amazing. This is the first exposure to a computer system in which it was
Digital.
It was, and it was, it was state of the art for that time. But of course, looking at it now, but we had to be knowledgeable, and that's what the basic training and the advanced training is how these things worked to the level we could make them work, and.
Just like you had the theory and fundamentals, and then you have practice.
We did.
You have the
yes. So outside of there was no specifics like qualifying to fly in a certain airplane or anything like that. We were qualified to launch Minuteman II ICBM.
And so the hardest part of the training was.
I think it was the simulator training. They had actual simulators of the
they had back then.
Council of the capsule where we would be with the appropriate equipment, council's displays, and they had these were computerized, could generate problems that you had to solve. Situations, and it was similar to being in an aircraft simulator, but you were in a missile combat council simulator, and it was always interesting to qualify. They was not just a normal, morning check-in, sit there, do your thing.
Yeah.
There was fires. There were we have flooding in the back of the capsule. We have a security breach upstairs. We have and you had to respond to these in a certain way, and they would multitasking and coordination with your fellow crew member.
It goes without asking, Mac, but I'll ask it. You could have maybe a person that couldn't deal with that.
There were some that didn't deal with it as well as others.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to have a crew, the major and a captain and myself formed a 3-person crew, and the other 2 had been navigators and had extensive flying background. I didn't, but that made no difference when you were in that capsule. But they were, seasoned vets, and they helped me a lot in learning how to handle pressure situations, and so that was we got qualified. We were the first qualified crew to be assigned to the 448 Strategic Missile Squadron. It was all new business up there. They were still building the sites when I got there.
Really?
Yeah, that base was just pretty new, and we were qualified as highly qualified, which means we got 100% on our oral, our written, and our simulator. We did that for 3 periods, which is pretty.
Do they come around often?
Every 6 months, you'd have to go back in and redo all three phases.
I see.
And you had to be 100% on all three, and then you get the highly qualified rating,
Great.
which gave you a pin.
Great.
And people knew that you kind of knew what you were
Squared
doing.
away.
How long of a shift would you work?
Well, yeah, I could get the three crews person. We would 24 hours on, and in the outset, the commander, the deputy, and myself, two has to be on duty at all times in the capsule. So it's an unknown zone because we had the nuclear go to war codes in a little safe right above us,
Wow.
and. So two was on and one was off. So you were on for 16 and off for 8 hours. Our launch control facility was about 80 feet below ground, and above it we built a kind of a modular place that had security and had food and shelter. And so we would spend our off time up there and take the elevator down.
Mac, would you telling me that this center that it was built to where you could be there for a long time?
Well, there were the support troops were there for a week, and yeah, it was not a trailer or anything,
Yeah.
but it was more modular. But there were 5 different. Actually, there were a total of 15 of these launch control facilities spread from the Canadian border almost down to the South Dakota borders, and each one of these facilities had a support facility on top, and then down below was the capsule with 10 feet thick concrete walled, self-contained, with a blast door which was 4 feet thick. You close yourself off, and nobody was going to get you. Now, the ironic thing was that the Russians had ICBMs too that were programmed to blow up right over your head. So your chance of survival was very limited. But for tornadoes and bad weather, you were in pretty safe confines.
Did you dedicated crews?
We were crew. We were a crew. We were together, and we would go out and do a 24-hour shift. Then we would be relieved by another 3-person crew.
You probably got pretty close to them, didn't you?
Yeah, we got to know each other pretty well, and that helped in the teamwork. And as Captain Bates, Major Peters, good fond memories of working with them as being a young greenhorn, and we would pull like. Probably do 7 shifts of these 24-hour shifts a month. It was a little more. It wasn't twice a week, but it was more than once a week. And you get a shift. You do one day on, then you would get a day off, and then you'd have training, other administrative duties that carry you through. And we as a side note, in the capsule. Again, it was two persons had to be there watching, and we were armed. We were both armed with 38 pistols, and that's why we had to qualify every year. And the thing about it, we've been trained that if the other person went off the rocker and tried to launch on their own, which they could not do, it would be virtually impossible. Or if we had some other danger that somebody was going to take over the capsule, we were to defend ourselves. But I was thought, if you shot a pistol in that thing, all it'll do is ricochet around and probably come back and hit you. So it wasn't the best place to have discharging firearms.
Did you get? How long were you at that? In that duty?
That was it, 4 years.
4 years.
Full
4 years.
4 years. And at that base, that was at the time SAC, Strategic Air Command's policy, that once you were trained and took it down to get the training, that you were to serve in this field, and then
I see.
For the full 4 years.
And did you receive any promotions, Mac?
Yes, I did. I met or exceeded my promotion levels. Got to first lieutenant. Below sooner than average, and I got to captain's sooner than the norm, and I had also received a regular commission versus a reserve commission. A regular commission will allow you to stay in for the 20-year career, which at the time I had thought strongly about doing.
So, what was the hardest part of that lifestyle,
Well, being
or that work style?
sometimes it was bored. I mean, it was hours and hours of boredom
Just
with
sitting around.
nothing happening. Now you could bring books. There was no computers, no TV.
Yeah.
You could bring books, magazines, or crossword puzzles, and so some of the boredom, and it could be literally you could go 8 hours and just do some normal routine. But then when something did happen, it was like it got your blood flowing.
Really?
Yeah. There were times when that woke you up real fast. So the thing that was the boredom. And
What was the easiest part of the work style?
Well, there wasn't a whole lot of manual labor involved. Yeah, our process was dealing with machines and technology. So I guess in a sense, getting to and from the site was the biggest manual thing. We had to drive, and sometimes flew in a.
There's no housing close by?
No. These that was by design. These remote facilities were to be out where it was least populated for security reasons and to disperse this this missile force out over a long range. You could drive up 120 miles to between 70 to 100 and 150 miles to get from the base to these different launch control facilities. So
Wow.
yeah. Commute was, you just didn't walk out and get in your car and go
Be home in
back
15
home.
minutes.
No, as I said, some of the farther ones that we were involved in, they had Huey helicopters that would shuttle us out, which is kind of fun. Get fly
That's neat.
helicopter to work.
That's neat.
And one of the interesting thing is, one time I got onto it, I looked over, and I said, "Captain Fisher," and he goes, "McCauley." I said, "Yes, sir." One of my ROTC instructors became a pilot. It was a pilot, came back from Vietnam, and was a Huey pilot there.
Oh, neat.
So it was kind of fun, and we went and had a beer afterwards and talked a little bit about it. So
So you mentioned that you were fortunate you never got involved in hostilities, huh?
no, we had the one most interesting story. Well, there's a couple of stories. I don't know if you get into stories, but
We do get into stories. So.
talking about boredom and then excitement.
Yeah.
This happened to myself and our deputy crew commander one evening. We're sitting there. We were in a facility called Auxiliary Command Post. We were one of the 15 launch facilities, and we were if for some reason the main command post back at the base, which was manned 7/24 by ranking officers, if for some reason that was locked out, our particular launch control facility would then assume the responsibilities of the whole missile the whole missile squadrons. And so as that, we had more responsibility. We had more communications, wider range of communications. We had the ability to monitor all 150 of these missiles. And because normally the crews would only be able to monitor theirs and their sisters. But so one night we're sitting there, and as on one of our missiles, our 10 birds. The indicator went to enable, and flipped the light switch, and the board showed that this missile was enabled, which was the next step to launching. And now sometimes this happens with error or a computer or communication. So I call it out. We immediately go through our checklist, check it, do the test, do everything we can. And every response we got indicated this bird was in the steps of being launched. It was beyond the point of killing it. You could disenable but we had went through all of those steps, and it wasn't being disenabled. It was still in
standby.
Standby mode, and we really got at that point. You really get this. This is the kind of thing that you do in the simulator, and you walk through it. But this is for real, and so we immediately called the command post. Gave them all the details. They said stand by. They got immediately in touch with there's a Boeing representative. Boeing was the manufacturer of the missile on base. It's call and call. They got a hold of that fellow. He's in 5 minutes, and he's talking to us. Now, we're 85 miles from the base, so they can't just drive over and do a little test. So he gives us a rundown. Try this, try that. Nope. What's the readout? Nope. Okay. Next call we get is from Strategic Air Command in Omaha, the big bosses. They're wanting us to describe exactly what we're sitting on here, and we told them we're in a position that this one of our missiles is beyond recall. We can't stop it. We're unable to at this point in time. So they said, stand by, and we were all alert. We were wide awake at that point. This was in the middle of the night. So we
middle of the night.
Yeah. So
wow.
They eventually said, okay, what we're doing, we're sending out one of our elite maintenance crews to
helicopter.
No, it's night, and then they don't fly up there at night. There's a lot of wires and things, and they couldn't get to this site was probably 10 miles from where we were, and it was fenced in, closed, secure, and. So they're driving this crew out. So they said, okay, you got to keep on top of this. Anything, of course, yes, we got a hotline. We don't get off the hotline. So my commander and I said, and all of a sudden it came to us, almost both of us. We'd sent a security check team out there. There was like a SWAT teams that would go out to these to make sure, if there was any broaches of security. We had sensors and everything, and Coyote would go through there and set off an alarm. Well, they would go check it out. Well, they'd gone out there and could not find anything disrupted. It was all buttoned up. We didn't tell them what we knew. We just said, go check the security, which I don't think was quite fair, because that thing blown off.
Yeah.
They were in, but it was the way it was. So we told them to back off a mile, keep it under surveillance. And while we're sitting there thinking, the captain and I the major and I said, you know what, we got an idea. The blast door on these missiles slides out. It blows sideways, and the missile is contained in a silo, which pops straight out. And we both, I don't know how or why, we both thought of this almost the time saying, we would have another crew go out in their pickup truck, park the pickup truck halfway over the silo cap, so it's sitting on the silo cap. When the silo cap would blow back, the pickup truck would fall, because it would just fall down, straight down into the hole. It would destroy the missile. The missile was probably coming out anyway, but it would destroy it right there. There would be some nuclear materials, but there would be no detonation, and it wouldn't get off. We went, well, okay, so we called the command post, told them we're going to do this, and they said, yeah, okay, do that, right?
Really?
So we send the other crew out, the other security crew. It gets out there. Again, we're not telling them why or how. They drive their pickup up, and then, of course, there's no video or anything. You got to do this all on a radio with some 18, 19-year-old kids. They get situated, and then they leave it sitting there. They back, all of them get in it, go back 2 miles, and they have binoculars. Said, man this thing, watch this thing, just let us know if anything. So, all right.
So you had like a safety then? You had something that would...
We thought we had like a Rube Goldberg, that
worst case scenario, ways to not...
to keep that bird from getting airborne. Yeah. It would have destroyed and blown up in the silo, limiting the damage. But did you do it, Mac, knowing that you'd be some of the collateral damage? No, it's far enough away. We probably wouldn't have been, because it would not have exploded. The nuclear particle, the fuel and everything would have caused a big explosion. The warhead would have had some contamination, but it was probably about 15 miles away, so it probably wouldn't affect. Now there's farmers around that area and others that weren't alerted. We didn't have
Yeah.
time to evacuate. So this
Still,
one,
what it was, Mac, is you would prevent starting World War III.
it very
That was
well
the
could
whole
have, very well could have, and it would have if that had come out of the hole. There is no stopping it then. Once it gets airborne, nothing we
Not
could
like
do.
not like a unmanned launch here. You could blow it up.
No, nothing. It was on its way, and they, maybe wherever it was going might have had a chance to shoot it down, but that was pretty early on, and so long story short, the other team, the maintenance team gets out there. Eventually, about a half hour later, they venture in. They leave the truck there. They venture in, and they actually pull the plug. Let's say that manually they pulled the plug that disabled that missile completely, and so it was then became not a potential hazard, and so
What were lessons learned?
well, yeah, it was. The ironic thing was we went back to the command post, and our commander, wing commander, have a meeting. As soon as you get on deck, we went in. We've been 24 hours. We go in there and sit down, and we had to go through and give them a written statement, and go through, verbally. And we were informed, they'll never talk. This is top secret. What happened there is a top secret thing, and do not discuss this with anybody
The
at any
details,
time.
still.
Yeah, and I didn't talk about this to 40 years. I mean, and it was never publicized. There was never any, this happened, and our crew and everybody involved was just, but no. But it was pretty exciting. And
Was it a man? Was it a man? Was it an error? Human error, or was it?
It was a computer
process.
It was a computer
Okay.
glitch. We kind of, you did kind of find out. We were involved enough that we did find out. It was nothing we did.
Mm-hmm.
It was a computer glitch. But
Okay.
it was pretty exciting, and I think
What we might today call a software.
Yeah. But it made for some interesting times that we could talk about.
You said, Mac, you had another story. I think you had two.
Yeah,
Love to hear the second one.
Well,
I don't know if it's going to top the first one. That's
pretty. Yeah, that was the one that was probably
that's
the
real.
most really.
That's real.
The story that involves the missiles themselves was. Our crew was, as I said, we were highly rated and performed well and had this situation happen to us. But we were selected a little later, about 6, 8, 9 months later, as one of 6 crews to go to Vandenberg Air Force Base to participate in a test launch of actually one of the missiles. Operation would go out, randomly pull a missile, ship it out to California, reinstall it, and without a warhead, but with everything as if it was a real deal. And they would send operational crews. We'd go out there for about a month, pull these alert duties, and at that time we had no, any top secret or any war, materials, and so we could sleep in the capsules and things like that. Well, my commander and I were on alert one day, and we, reading and chatting, talking sports, and all of a sudden they get it was very similar to as if it was real world. Get the notice, and we go through the motions and actually turn the keys, which there is a key. You turn it, and simultaneously, and launches the bird.
Wow.
And we weren't able to get up to see it. But we listened, and it went successfully. And we listened to the downrange tracking. They piped that into us, and we were just sitting there looking at each other. And it goes, I don't know, I can't remember the time, but within minutes, there's 1,000 miles downrange on target. 3 or 4 minutes there, 2,000 miles,
Wow.
4,000, 5,000 miles downrange on target, splash down within a half mile of the target base.
Traveling that far.
That far, and we didn't have time to get up and go upstairs. It all happened. We're just going, oh my God.
Go ahead.
We got to see the trail, the contrail,
Oh, wow.
like you see launching here.
Yeah.
But
Did it go into outer space?
yeah, it
does
goes
go
up.
into space.
It goes, I don't know, 100, 200 miles up and arches down.
Do you know where it landed?
Say again?
Do you know where it landed?
It was a atoll that was out in the Pacific,
Kwajalein?
somewhere out there.
Kwajalein.
Little atoll.
South Pacific.
South Pacific
Yeah.
that had all kinds of monitoring devices, and that
Yeah.
was it. They'd program it to aim it to land there. That was exciting to sit there and do that for 4 years, and some people never got the chance to actually make
Definitely.
one go. And we
That's
got
right.
to do
That's
that.
neat.
And we were brought back and given no medal or anything,
No.
but it was noted that we were on duty that day
Right.
that launched.
And it sounds like a DESO launch here when they do the Trident. They test the Trident. Of course, we're jumping ahead like 55
50,
years.
yeah.
But the Trident is something that's amazing, and they had they don't since 9/11. I don't do it as much, but both American and British subs, they pull up to this Canaveral, the Trident Basin at Port Canaveral, and a surface ship, a tracking ship, would follow it out. I don't know, 20 miles, and then they'd shoot a submarine would deploy
Launch it.
a Trident missile, and it was really quite a sight. And it would, like I said, it would seem like to act a lot like what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Mac.
operational, make sure it
Really
worked
neat.
and see where it goes and how far
Really
it
neat.
went there.
It's
And,
man's technology is just
and they're talking 60. We're in the mid, 67, 8, 69. So this stuff was all nowhere near as sophisticated as it is now. But it
Yeah.
was still at the time we were on the
cusp of-
on the heading
Yeah.
heading of that.
Yeah.
But that was pretty much a highlight. One of the highlights.
Any other highlights?
The other interesting story about involved around the crew, the missile side of it was getting to the missile sites was like I said, it was North Dakota country roads. They were paved, but they were country roads, 2-lane country roads. Most of them. There was no freeways, and it was from 50 to 150 miles from the base. And then some days when weather conditions weren't right, they had to drive. Everybody had to drive. So they had these Ford station wagons, big old grand Ford station wagons, and they were a government issue, so they weren't very luxurious.
Mm-hmm.
They had a radio, kind of a CB radio that you could command post. So one morning, this was down when we were only on two crew members per crew. We were on for 24 hours, and we were allowed one of us to sleep periodically during it. So there was 2 crews, 4 of us in this Ford station wagon, taken off, had our briefing in the morning, got on the road about 10 o'clock, which would probably have been about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive to the, and we would drop off one, and then we would go on out another half hour to ours.
Oh, you mean you go various stations? It'd be like a bus.
Yeah. We were like shuttling. We were
Shuttle.
carpooling.
Shuttle. Yes, sir.
We would carpool.
Yes,
we
sir.
would drop them off on one, and then drive over
Make
to
all the way.
ours.
I see.
And the relief crew would come back and pick them up, and I'll go back. So we're out there driving along, and it's clear and cold. But about a half hour into it clouded up and started snowing into the trip. And we're used to driving on the snow, but you didn't have the weather forecasting like you have right now.
Mm-hmm.
So about 20 minutes later, it's a full-on blizzard. I mean, it is a full blizzard with 30, 40 mile an hour wind blowing sideways, snow blowing sideways, and visibility goes down to you can't see the front of the car, barely see the front of the car, and we're still about a ways to go. We're on a paved road. We're going down. We know where we are, but we get out there, and it gets so bad. One of the commanders says, "Okay, here's what we'll do. You open the door, the car door. One of you sits and look at the side of the road, and grab the steering wheel. You do the steering. No, this is the honest God truth. And the other guy will do the brakes and gas. and you tell him slow, right, slow, slow. Okay, go. And the door was open, and we were watching it. We did that for about 5 minutes, and the wind and the cold got in the car so bad we were free. The temperature was dropping drastically, so they abandoned that idea. The next idea was one of us to get out of the car and walk in front of the car, because they have these parkers with these bright reflector tapes on them. Walk in front of the car, and he could see the highway, and he would walk down the front, and they would just follow the car. We're going about 1 mile an hour. We're not.
And you had a ways to go?
We still had a ways to go. So the guy out there, he would do that for about 5 minutes, and it was so damn cold. You come back in, and so one of them come back in and sat down, and just as they got in the car, a tanker truck went by the other way, going the other way. Big oil tanker. Oh my God. So no, we're not going to do that anymore. Okay, so we did try to press on by driving and seeing, and we finally find the turn to go to the first. We turn in there, and there's a station. It's actually a golf. In the summertime, it's a par 3 golf course, and in the winter they close it down. But there's a shed. There's it's protected. Had a telephone. We pull in there. Said, oh, thank God. I go, wow, we got a place. We're good. And pull in there. We had a payphone. Our radio gone dead by that time. The command post didn't know where we were. It's dark by now. We're 6 hours into this trip, and it's dark. It gets dark early up there. So we go to the payphone, and we didn't have enough money to make the call. We had to call collect back to the command post, and they had to accept the call. Yes, sir. All right. What the? Well, sir, here where we are. Then they go, well, that's the first time we ever got a collect call from one of our crews. They said, well, we didn't have enough money. We didn't have enough change to make the call in the old days, So they did. We reported where we are, and they said, okay, all right. Well, that's good. We didn't know what happened to him. So I said, okay, well. We alert the other. We get a hold of the place and tell them you're late, and then said, okay, well we'll be in touch. Well, our two commanders decide that we're only about a mile from the spot, but you literally couldn't see the other side of this room. It was so whiteout condition. Mm-hmm. So they decide the junior officers didn't vote on this, but they decided to get back in and let's just make it this time. We got to get there, press on, dude. So I don't believe this is going to work, sir. So get in. All right, we got in. We went about 200 yards and ran off the road into a ditch. And the car we were on a position you couldn't rock it one way or the other. So now we're stuck. We have no radio, and we can't. You're not going to get out and walk the distance. So we were there for about an hour, broke out the survival kits, got in mummy bags because the car was about running out of gas. It's the only way you keep the car heated. So we got in these mummy bags, Arctic mummy bags, and all of a sudden, about an hour later, some rapid knocking on the car. We were scared as hell of it. And it was the security team had gotten in their snow cat, it's like a tank.
But you see in the Arctic.
Yeah. Wow. They had one of those there.
Wow.
They drove it with spotlights and got down the road and found us, pulled us out. Wow. And then we followed them for it was literally less than a mile to the thing. Pull in the thing, breathe a big sigh of relief. I thought, oh my God. I thought, this is, we report, and everybody's, okay, that's good. All right, you guys are good to go. We got to go. Well, we called our site, and we're going to tell them, we're stuck here. And they go, hey, don't go, man. It's bad here. Okay. So I said, all right. So we go sit down and have a cup of coffee, and my commander comes over and says, well, Mac, I think we got to get back in and go on over. We got to get over to relieve those guys. And I said, what? He said, yeah, I think we can make it. And I said,
I think we could make it.
Beg your pardon, sir. I have to tell you this one thing. I said, I'm really not leaving this facility until it's sunny and the weather's cleared and the roads are clear. I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to do it.
Mike, was that the first time you ever said that to the superiors?
Yes. I felt
the health and safety of.
Yeah. We'd gone back out there because it was then about midnight. It was a long way before Don, and there was no way we were going to make it. If we made it a mile from that place, because we still had 7-10 miles to go. And I just said that, and he sat back, and I said, you know, when we talk about it a little bit, and he goes, okay, let's talk about it. So I explained what I felt, and we thought, and you know, it didn't take long. He said,
Good. He came around.
Yeah. I said, okay, I agree. Let's just stay here. So we bunked up there, got up next morning, clear blue sky, off we went. But that was a period of time in North Dakota where we went 19 days in which the high for the day was -20, the high. And that's not wind chill factor, that was thermometer reading. And so for a kid from San Diego, California,
Wow.
that was a big culture shock.
And Mac, did you ever from that did you avoid snow the rest of your?
I pretty much knew I could do heat better than cold,
Yeah.
but I can talk weather with anybody. 'Cause I grew up at 130, literally 130 above in the summer,
Wow.
to 70, 80 below in
Yeah.
the winter. So.
Yeah.
But no, I'm just, that's why I'm in Florida right now.
I know there's not going to be any other story that's going to top those.
That's
couple
pretty
stories.
good. Yeah, that was pretty good. My only, I don't know any other questions or I had to say that the time spent was good for me. I have lifetime friends, my roommates, and we actually had a reunion 3 years ago. 4 of us lived together, and we're all still close
great.
enough to get together and
That's great.
tell stories, and sometimes we phoned with a few others.
Did any of the guys that you think your buddies did they stay in? Any of
One
them?
did. One did. He got qualified, became a navigator, and retired, lieutenant colonel.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually lives in Tallahassee. The other 3 of us, we went our own ways, but it was a great experience.
Mac, now going to the end of the service, did you recall? Do you recall the day you got out? Do you recall it?
Sure do.
And where were you when your service ended?
I was in Grand Forks, I went in, and our personnel had to check out, sign out the base. And you had to do that in uniform, and our uniforms consisted of these. They were. One of them was like a jumpsuit with a zipper.
White suit?
See?
White suit?
Not as glamorous, but kind of, but not as cool. But you wear my civilian clothes underneath it, and so our jumpsuit uniform had that on. Went in, checked in, went outside, got in the men's room, unzipped it, rolled it up, put it in my car, got my car, and
I'm civilian.
So I'm back. I'm out.
Poof! It's like the reverse Superman.
Kind of. It was like it was the transition wasn't that hard.
Did you return home to El Centro?
I went back. Yes, I did. Went back to Southern California. Went on to graduate school. Got my master's in business administration. Married my college sweetheart, and embarked on my career, the rest of my life, working career. And
did you? Were you? Now, Mac, when you left during when Vietnam was starting to heat up, right?
1970.
Actually, you were probably around the peak of.
Yeah.
Were you received well?
I was. Yes, I was. I never encountered any bitterness when I would tell people, I've been in the Air Force, and the people that I was at school with, it was interesting because at that time there was some anti-war protesting going on, but at Long Beach State that wasn't so much, and no, I never felt that.
Did you have any problem at all, Mac, readjusting to civilian life?
Not really. Having not been out of the country, although we often said you needed to get a passport to go to North Dakota because nobody would go there on their own. But having that being said, now the adjustment was pretty pretty easy. I took 3 months off and toured Europe backpacking, which helped decompress me, and I enjoyed it by myself. And came back and went to school. So it seemed not a big adjustment.
Did the GI Bill help?
Dramatically. Yes, it paid for my master's degree.
Now I'm going to go back and say a question I should have asked earlier. How did you think, Mac, that going ahead and being able to go through, to skip the military service and go directly to your college and then on to your career, if you skip that, I mean, where I'm getting at is, did the service change you in any way? Do you think having to go through the service, did it change you in any way?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was. I needed it. It was not only because I wanted to serve. I felt then, I still do feel that I owed this country, still do, and sent some service and some of my time and energy. And at that time, I wasn't mature. I needed guidance. I needed the structure of the Air Force and military command, rank and rules.
Structure.
And it also better prepared me for thinking. Number one, I got
critical thinking,
indoctrinated into computers back when
the starting
people didn't have computers. And I got to be touching them, be involved in it, kind of get it
right at the beginning.
And that ended up being helpful. But it was the experience of meeting the people, the place that I was. I never would have gone on my own. I never would have met the people I met. I never would have had opportunities, and so my 4 years was well worth it for me, and I hope for my country.
Did the service affect any way that you relate to people? You mentioned that you learned some of the, you went through that culture of the military culture, and yes sir, no sir, and you have to show respect, and do you think that affected going on after you got out? Think it affected the way you related to people?
Probably, and then I probably have more respect for people that are above me, managers or owners, or
yes, sir.
Realizing that their responsibilities and where I kind of fit within this picture.
So that helped.
That helped me. Helped me understand that.
Did you ever join? Now I'm going to joke. Did you ever join any veterans organizations?
I have joined the military MOA. I had joined MOA, and I have not attended in a couple of years, but I'm going to get back in it. That was interesting.
The one here, I don't know if you're in this, so they say it's the largest chapter in America.
Yes,
very vibrant. Very vibrant.
Very.
And you said you did attend reunions. Now, reunions, they are reunions, so you did attend.
Well, I don't call them, there's my roommates, the four of us, we would get together. It's not a reunion with any other, the wing or the squadron and that. I've just recently got in touch with a Facebook website that has the 321st website and has, postings, and they had reunions unbeknownst to me, but our reunions are just the three of us are roommates that were roommates.
But your duty, right? The way it was, Mac, your duty was that few people. That's the way it was structured. So you wouldn't, right? That's kind of, in a sense, it is a reunion, not a official whole large
Yeah.
battalion, or it's
Yeah. No. The four of us getting together
Yeah,
for a day
it's a
or two
reunion.
is a reunion. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other way that the military service affected your life?
It it said the GI Bill helped
Immensely.
helped me immensely with the time of my life I still to this day respect the people that have served and are serving, probably maybe more so than others. My son and I have discussed this. I had hoped that in some way he might have gone in and just served, be it 2 years, 4 years, and he admits that he may have missed out on something.
Yeah.
So without
My son's the same way. I have two sons.
without and they're very proud that what I did, and on every Veterans Day, my grandchildren and they always call me and thank me,
nice. How
and that's
nice.
that's appreciated.
How nice.
Appreciate
So that it meant something to you. They knew it meant something to you.
Yeah, I believe so.
Now, we're almost done. How has your service impacted your feelings about the military or about war? Has your service impacted your feelings about the military, and in particular any war hostilities?
I didn't participate, actually, a participant of the Vietnam War, but I have friends who did, and unfortunately I didn't lose any friends in that, but I have friends that did. In answer to that question is the military. My service kind of made me aware that it is needed. A strong military presence is needed, and that serving in it is something that should do if you can do, and the sense of war. As I end up having children that were the age to go, I kind of had a second thought about exposing them for some of the political reasons. I don't know all of them, but the Vietnam situation
Yes.
come to pass.
Vietnam, and then now we're talking about how we got into Iraq and all
Iran
that,
and that.
and
So-
staying there and all that.
Yeah, it's kind of different because I grew up
Yes.
in World War II and we won it,
Yeah.
and in Korea there was a pretty, we won enough of it, but since then it's been, we aren't winning a whole lot, it seemed like,
No.
but
No, sir.
but I still think that the military presence is needed, and hopefully we'll keep it strong.
Okay. Do you have any, Mac? Do you have any message or any words of wisdom to leave for future generations that may view this DVD?
Well, I just to say that I in particular got to do something I never would have done ever in my whole life. I got to do it in a place I never would have done it, North Dakota, and I got to be with some people, guys that I never would have met in my whole life, and with that. Putting that all together, it was good. It was a good thing. I'm glad I did it, and would I do it again? Yeah, in a heartbeat.
And in conclusion, just a few more. For one, I'd like to thank you for taking this time to share your story, which I think is just very interesting. Is there anything else, Mac, that's not covered in this interview you'd like to add?
No, I'm glad that you guys are willing to take the time and effort to do this, because now that I know that it's available to go look at, I got the military library here. I read a lot and watch a lot of documentaries. So at some point in time, maybe somebody will 10 years, 15 years from now, want to look up somebody that was in a strategic missile base and actually got to shoot one but didn't kill anybody.
I know that you've shared a lot, but is there anything anything else that you'd want to share about your service or veteran experience? Anything, whether it's an active service, veteran experience, anything?
I have to honestly say, I incurred an injury in the service that led to being a disabled disability, and I have had my dealings with the VA, and in particular with the medical facilities here, and it's been confined here to Florida.
Yes.
But each and every one of those facilities are run by competent people who are caring people, and I'm thankful that I have had the chance to get the care from them that I've had and needed, and so I just think that that's something that should be noted, that it's not all bad. There are places in here, and you only hear the bad. So nobody does a news story on how kind and helpful the VA medical facilities
Thank you,
are.
Mac, for that comment.
Yeah.
And so just two more. What would you like people to know or remember from your story? Anything in particular? I know you've said a lot. Now, these are like these recollections. You've given me a lot. These reflections, but anything?
I guess that in one sense, had you interviewed me probably halfway through my tour, I might have had a whole different outlook. It was a real culture shock for me to being a Southern California lad to end up where I was, and not only the weather, but just the scenery, everything. So it's kind of interesting that this is done after the fact. 52 years later, that I would say it's all kind of mellowed. It's kind of aged, and as much as I can remember, the good times and the not so good times, they work out just like they do most everything.
Finally, what do you wish more people knew about veterans? Do you have anything you'd want to know? I know you mentioned about the Veterans Administration, about taking care of them. Anything else?
I think that the people, most people, don't realize how veterans are have a mindset to not again, there's always an exception, but the majority of the veterans come out with a mindset that they can listen well. They're task oriented. They have their respect. They know how things kind of work, and most of them, I believe, can communicate in a sense that they have to in most of their jobs. So if the public would have more interaction with veterans, I think they'd find out that especially the younger fellows, that there are, they have the issues too, but they still are solid.
Yes, sir.
Solid, I believe, solid
Do
individuals.
you think that the service really helps them, make them more better workers and better, more job oriented?
Sure, I would say I would, and in businesses that I have been worked in, my experience was that a veteran was a little, not necessarily always a lot, but was more mature
And more task oriented.
Yeah, it was a pretty darn good employee. So I think that the current crop of kids coming out, I think they're given a chance, they would do good.
And at this point, Mac, I'd like to conclude the interview with expressing thank you from me and the rest of our team.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you
very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your
Thank
service to
you.
our country.
Enjoyed it.
Very good.